In the days following her retreat from the battlefield, Seraphina wandered through the dense forests, burdened by guilt and exhaustion. She had left the chaos behind, convinced that Kael was lost forever, cursed by the very death spell she had unleashed. Yet, despite her overwhelming sorrow, a nagging sensation lingered at the back of her mind, an unshakable feeling that not everything was as it seemed. Restless and desperate for clarity, she journeyed back to her old tower, once a sanctuary of her power and solace. Now, it stood crumbled and weathered, the scars of her battle with Kael etched into the very stones. With a heavy heart, she crossed the threshold, her eyes desperately scanning the debris for any trace of him. She couldn't bear to look at the spot where she had last seen him, fearing it would confirm her darkest fears. But when she finally summoned the courage to face that haunting corner of the room, her heart dropped. Kael's body was missing. She searched the space frantically, her pulse quickening with each passing moment. It was as if he had vanished, leaving no trace behind. The air around her felt too still, too quiet. Panic surged within her. Was he taken? Had someone intervened? Yet, amid the chaos of her thoughts, one truth pierced through. Kael was not dead. Deep within her, she could feel his essence flickering like a candle in the darkness. Seraphina's thoughts turned to Miral, her old master, the one who had guided her through the darkest times. If anyone could help her understand what had transpired and how to bring Kael back, it would be him. Gathering her remaining strength, Seraphina embarked on the long journey to Miral's hidden sanctuary. The journey was fraught with difficulties. Treacherous paths twisted through shadowy forests and jagged cliffs, testing her resolve. Yet, driven by an urgent need for truth, Seraphina pressed on, refusing to let exhaustion claim her. Days turned into a blur before she finally reached a secluded temple, tucked away between ancient trees, far from prying eyes. Miral greeted her at the entrance, his expression a mixture of calm understanding and unspoken concern, as if he had anticipated the turmoil within her. His eyes, wise and ageless, held a depth that always left Seraphina in awe. Without uttering a word, he gestured for her to follow him inside, and they entered a quiet chamber illuminated by the warm glow of candlelight. Books lined the walls, ancient tomes filled with arcane knowledge. Yet, one particular book caught Miral's attention. He retrieved it with practiced care, its pages worn and fragile from the passage of time. "You seek answers, don't you?" Miral's voice was gentle yet firm. "I've been waiting for you, Seraphina." Seraphina's heart raced. She hadn't uttered a single word, but Miral seemed to understand her unspoken dread. She stood silent for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "I thought he was gone, Miral," she finally whispered, her voice quivering. "I believed I lost him forever. But I feel something. Kael isn't dead, is he?" Miral nodded slowly, his gaze intense. "You are right to trust your instincts. Kael's body remains, but his soul is ensnared in the space between life and death. A great darkness shrouds him, one that cannot be easily dispelled." He placed the ancient book on the table between them, flipping through its fragile pages. "To bring him back, you must perform a ritual unlike any you've ever attempted. But the path ahead is fraught with peril." Seraphina followed Miral's hands as they paused on a page adorned with intricate symbols and faded script that seemed to pulse with energy. "What must I do?" she asked, steeling herself for the challenges that lay ahead. "You must gather 3 powerful elements: each representing a core part of Kael's essence. These elements will rekindle the spark of life within him, but each comes with formidable trials. Miral's gaze bore into hers, sharp and unwavering. The first is the element of strength, a legendary sword known as Valerion. It lies hidden in the forest of eternal night, guarded by an ancient warrior spirit who tests the worth of all who seek it. Seraphina's breath caught at the mention of the sword. Valerion, said to possess the strength of 1,000 warriors. It was no ordinary blade. It held immense power, intertwined with Kael's very fate. Yet, retrieving it would demand immense courage. The second is the element of memory, Miral continued. The Elysian Heart, a pendant that binds one's memories to the soul. It resides in the ruins of a forgotten temple, where you must confront Kael's darkest memories. Only by facing these shadows can you unlock the true power of the Elysian Heart. A shiver ran down Seraphina's spine. She understood the gravity of reliving Kael's suffering. It would be painful not only for him, but also for the bond they shared. And finally, Miral said, his voice softening, the element of heart, the tear of the eternal. It can be found at the sacred waterfall, the boundary between the living and the dead. But to claim it, you must relinquish something of great personal value, Seraphina. A sacrifice that will cost you dearly. Seraphina stared at the page, her mind racing. The tasks ahead were formidable, each carrying a weight far beyond her expectations. But if it meant bringing Kael back, she knew she had no choice. "Where do I begin?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tempest of emotions within her. Miral closed the book, locking eyes with her. "You must first face the trial of strength in the forest of eternal night. Only once you claim the Valerian sword will you be prepared for the trials that follow. But remember, Seraphina, this journey is not solely about saving Kael. It will test the very essence of your soul. Prepare yourself for what lies ahead." Seraphina nodded, a fire of determination igniting within her. She rose to her feet, fully aware of the arduous path that awaited her. As she stepped out of Miral's sanctuary and back into the wilderness, a renewed sense of purpose surged through her. Kael was not lost to her. No matter the trials ahead, she would bring him back, even if it meant facing her own deepest fears. Thus began Seraphina's quest, a journey to gather the elements of strength, memory, and heart, not only to save Kael but to unravel the deeper mysteries entwining their fates. The road ahead would be perilous, but Seraphina knew that her love for Kael, her unwavering strength, and the guidance of her master, Miral, would carry her through. As the first light of dawn pierced through the forest canopy, Seraphina set her sights on the distant forest of eternal night, where the Valerian sword awaited her. The awakening quest had begun.